Hello, my friends. Let me know if you can hear me okay. I'm live from the kitchen today. So a little different setting than usual, and it isn't even my kitchen. Um, Long story short, I have construction going on at my house, and so I'm at a friend's to be here with you. The topic for today is steps of vocal progress, the steps that most singers take in order to make progress on their voice. And the reason I thought this would be good to cover is people can't afford regular private lessons. So if you have a private teacher that is holding your hand through that process, then obviously you're well acquainted with the steps that you personally are taking to improve your voice. But for those of us who cannot afford ongoing private lessons, this is kind of general principles, guidelines, things to keep in mind. I'm Camille, singer and voice teacher, and let me know if you're here live, if you can hear me and see me, and all is well. And we will jump in. I can probably turn up the gain on my mic a little bit if need be. So I'm going to outline the steps and then we'll go in depth. So, the steps that most singers take to improve their voices first, if you have trouble matching pitch, then we work on pitch matching. That's the first step because I can't really do much for a student if I give them an exercise and they are not singing the pitches that I give them. So, that's really goal number one. Hi, Carl. Hi, Cookie. Um, Work on pitch matching. Second thing that most singers will do is they'll identify their comfortable range. And I say comfortable, I think that's important. It's important to know not only what's the lowest and highest that you can squeak out sound, but where is your voice actually comfortable? So usually in a first voice lesson, I'll help a student, I'll walk through the keyboard with them and I'll be listening myself, but I'll be relying on what they're telling me about how things feel and how they think it sounds to them. The next thing a singer typically works on, again, we're going to go back and dive into these a little bit more deeply. But the next thing we typically work on is posture and breathing. Um, just a quick word on that. There are different breath strategies. Be adaptable. Some people are really, really into the belly breath. Some people are all about the back breath. Other people are just into rib cage expansion. And the reality is every body is different, different muscular, whatever your body type is. Um, a different breath strategy might work for you than works for me. So as a teacher, I try to be very adaptable and teach a few different ways to work on breath management. But that's typically even before you start singing, a teacher will usually take you through, okay, this is what good singing posture looks like and feels like. Let's talk about different breath management strategies. Um, the second few things that we do are make sure that you're accessing your strong chest voice or speaking voice. It's the same function. So if you can say, "Hey, how are you?" and then sing with that strength, in that range, great. That's your chest voice. It's no more complicated than that. Um, the thing that sometimes happens is singers will get into what I call pretty singing mode, and when I ask them to sing, they won't go, "Ah," they'll go, "Ah." And they're already using that lighter kind of head voice mode for their lowest pitches. Um, Not only does that decrease the strength and tone quality of their low notes, but it also doesn't really do much good for their high notes either. And it diminishes our ability to really build strength at any point in their range. So that's first step, are you accessing your chest voice? And a good way or a question to ask yourself is when I'm singing low, when I'm singing in my speaking voice range, because each of these pitches, I'm not aware of the pitches I'm talking on, but there are pitches. Okay. So if I'm singing in my low speaking voice range, are those pitches as strong and clear as my speaking voice? Or did I get quiet? You know? Second thing we do is we access our head voice. Probably a good spot for most singers, regardless of voice type or gender, would be about a G or an A4. So that would be this note or this note. So if you can give me a high-pitched woo-hoo or cuckoo, like a cuckoo clock, if you can do that and it sounds kind of similar to the sound that I made, that is your head voice or your falsetto function. That's the next step. Um, After that, once you can go back and forth between your chest voice, hey. So, an exercise I'll sometimes give students is to go, hey, and then one octave higher, ooh, and then back to hey. Just feeling the difference between chest voice, head voice, chest voice. That's challenging enough for a lot of beginning students. And then we start to add some notes in between. And of course, our eventual goal is blending the two voices together in the middle, so we don't have this really abrupt break or crack. Okay, so access chest voice, access head voice, put them together, start developing your mixed coordination or mixed registration. Over time, some other things that singers will typically work on are dynamic variety. You don't always have to sing loud, you don't always want to be singing quietly. So that's something that you can work on within your song work, but it's also something you can do in the context of an exercise. You can say, okay, I'm going to sing this exercise at a medium volume. Now I'm going to sing it with a little bit more fullness, a little bit more strength. You can also do exercises we'd call messa di voce. And those types of exercises, we're going from quiet to loud and back to quiet. So something like, ooh. And it's actually a really difficult exercise, especially getting quiet again from when you were loud. So most people don't have a terribly hard time getting louder, but then going from loud, gradually decreasing volume, is a little bit tricky. So just look up on YouTube Messa di Voce. It's MESSADIVOCE. I'll type it in the chat. If you're interested in exercises like that and you're like, oh, I've never done an exercise like that, that seems like a good thing to work on. Messa di Voce. Again, the goal there is dynamic variety so that you can sing with with different dynamics. You're not always yelling, you're not always whispering. Another thing that singers work on over time is range extension. The easiest way to work on range extension is to grab a straw, submerge it in water. What you're looking for are bubbles and sound at the same time, and you're literally just think about singing an ooh, ooh through that straw. And doing some glides down to the lowest comfy note you can go to. So, an example for me, I would go down first in a comfortably low range for my voice. That might be ooh, and then I'd walk down ooh, ooh, ooh. So I'm at kind of the limit of my comfy range right here. Ooh. But if I was singing through a straw, which I wish I had, I'm sorry I don't, I'll switch to a lip trill just for today. I'll do that one again because my voice kind of cracked. So that's going A, D, A, or E. And then I'll try to go a little bit lower. That's not necessarily so that I can include that D or D flat within my usable range. I don't think my voice will ever get to that point where those super low notes are really comfortable for me. But if I exercise regularly to those notes, then what ends up happening is the E's and F's that before felt really low and felt like the basement don't feel so low anymore. So if I sing that F again, that feels a lot more comfy now that I've sung the E and the E flat, and then even tried to stretch down to the D and the C sharp. That F, that really is probably the lowest pitch I can sing comfortably. Now it feels better. It feels more solid, and it doesn't feel like this is the lowest I can go. And then same thing with your high notes as well. Again, sirening through a straw, doing just a and then walking up. At some point, you're going to reach a pitch where your voice kind of cuts out. So it might go And you can hear at the top there, you could hear my lips vibrating together, but you could not hear a sound. I would try that again. This time I would be aware of keeping my airflow. And that time that note did come out. I think sometimes as singers, we neglect repetition. Um, repetition meaning like pause the warm up video, try that exact same pitch or iteration of the exercise again. You might be able to get it the second time through. Um, okay, so these are our overtime goals: dynamic variety, range extension, agility, being able to move your voice quickly and cleanly and accurately. This comes into play with riffs and runs, of course. But if you're a classical singer and you have melismas, which basically is like a classical riff or run, you're just moving your voice quickly over several pitches at once. Um, Training agility within the context of a warm up is a good idea. If you think about it, if you're struggling to do something within a song and you've never done that thing before, that's that's normal, right? That's fine. It's to be expected. It's just the same idea as if I was doing a new workout and there was a lunge that I've never done before, some variation on a lunge, and I feel wobbly and I feel weak and I'm not really, certain about my form. That's normal. So what does that tell me? If I want to keep doing that exercise, I'm going to include that in my exercise routine. I'm going to revisit that daily. So same idea. If in a song I encounter this really fast passage, then and if I'm really struggling with it, then I'll say, maybe I should be moving my voice a little bit quicker in my warm ups. So I'm going to look up warm ups specifically for agility, riffs, runs, melismas. I'll include that in my search. Um, and then the last thing that we'll work on over time is power. The reason that we don't work on power right from the start is because if you're a beginning singer and you don't yet have access to your head voice, so let's say you just have been working on chest voice, working on power just in chest voice, you're going to reach a limit. There's going to be a ceiling that you cannot go higher than. And so for the most healthy, sustainable sound making, um, we want to first work on those basics like posture, breath support, accessing chest voice and head voice, starting to blend the two together before we then add power to the mix. Um, and then other things over time would be style. So, ways that we can work on style as singers are first, just imitating what we hear other singers doing. I don't knock imitation. I know there are some voice teachers who will say, don't imitate other artists, find your style. My thought is, how do I find my style? I find my style by imitating other artists. That's how I found my, signature style. I see myself very much as a blend of all my favorite artists. I grew up listening to James Taylor, Bonnie Raitt, Creedence Clearwater Revival. I got into jazz a lot in college. I listened to a lot of musical theater. And so the styles that I like to sing are heavily influenced by that. I think of myself, on one hand as a musical theater kind of Disney sounding singer, and then other times kind of a bluesy folk, Nora Jones, James Taylor, all those influences. Um, and I'm not trying to do an impression of any one person, but I'm just naturally influenced by my favorite singers. So don't be afraid to imitate. I think kind of a plan to follow. Sorry, I keep hitting my laptop, which is on something. Um, First imitate, then see if you can incorporate those same stylistic effects in your own song work. So let's say, for example, I'm learning Sitting on the Dock of the Bay, and he does this little three-note riff. Otis Redding goes, um, left my home in Georgia. And he sings three notes on the word home, left my home in Georgia. Okay. Once I imitate that little style, I can, in another song I'm singing, I can add a little three note riff like that. So that's the incorporation piece. And then the next step beyond that, I would say this is maybe a little bit more of an advanced thing to work on, but that would be improvisation. And improvisation can be as simple as just altering the melody. Um, so an example of that might be as simple as I'm singing Can't Help Falling in Love with You. And instead of going, wise men say, just vary that melody a little bit. Wise men say. So I'm walking down instead of just jumping down. Only fools rush in. Do I like what I just did? No, but it's, improvisation. You're just experimenting, trying something new. So that can be where you start with improvisation. You don't have to start right off the bat by creating something entirely from scratch. When I work with students on improvisation and making a song your own, that's where I start. I ask them, just change one note or change the rhythm. So instead of singing wise men say, only fools, try wise men say, only fools rush in. And now I'm not changing the melody, really. I mean, I'm not changing the pitches, I should say. I'm just changing the rhythm or the phrasing. But that can get me out of the box of imitating other artists. So improvisation can start with very, very simply just changing one or two things about the melody. Another step to take, a good practice tool, would be to take a song, either a song that you know or a song you don't, listening to the karaoke track, and then singing something other than the melody. So the karaoke track is going to be the chords of the song, okay? So let's take Let It Be, for example. Sorry if that's way too loud. So the first four chords in Let It Be, if you're listening to the karaoke track, are going to be this, that, that, that. Okay. So I'm listening to the karaoke track. I'm not going to sing when I find myself. Okay. I'm just going to hum or sing an ooh, and I'm going to try to make it sound good with the chords. Maybe I'm going to hit a sour note that doesn't work, but I'll do something like, ooh, ooh. Okay. I kind of know how those chords go, so it's easy for me to think of a melody that'll fit. But maybe you're doing something much more simple. You're just sitting on one note. You're going, and maybe it takes you a second to kind of hear what pitch is going to fit. That's totally fine. Okay. Basically, what I'm doing there is I'm just singing the root of the chord. It's very, very simple. But for a beginner, that's a big challenge. Being able to hear, what can I sing that's going to fit with this chord? Any chord that you hear, typically there's at least 3 pitches within that chord. So for example, that first chord is a C major chord. There's a C, an E, and a G. So if I'm singing any of those pitches, surely it's going to sound good. You don't need to know what the chord is or the pitches that belong. All you need to know is, does it sound good, what I'm singing? So for example, ooh, that sounds good. What about this? Ooh, doesn't sound good. You can hear it clashes. That's dissonance. Sometimes dissonance, or many times dissonance is planned and it does sound good, like something like this. Ooh, you could make the argument that that does sound good, or ooh. I'm not singing pitches within the chord, but it works in some way. Anyways, generally though, we don't want to be singing things that clash, at least all the time. um, okay, so that was a big tangent on improvisation, but hopefully applicable. Hopefully you can try that on your own. Again, the example there was taking a karaoke track, either of a song that you know or a song that you don't, and just singing, humming or singing ooh, ah, whatever, in a way that to your ear sounds good with the chord. Speaking of ear training, that's another thing that singers work on. This is my last main point for steps most singers take to improve their voices. This is actually a step that not all singers take explicitly. I think that most singers do end up improving their ear, um, but some singers set out to improve their ear specifically. So they have that goal. Um, Things that you can work on when it comes to ear training are intervals. You can start to pick out harmonies in the songs that you listen to. You can practice holding a part, like holding a harmony part when someone else is singing the melody. There are a few resources I would recommend. If you want to get into ear training, it kind of goes naturally along with it that you would get into music theory at the same time. And musictheory.net is a really great resource. It's completely free. They do have 2 inexpensive apps that if you wanted to, you could pay for, but the site is extremely functional, no ads on it. It's really great, and they have lessons on music theory as well as many ear training exercises, quizzes, things like that. They're also highly customizable, so you can choose, okay, I want these ear training exercises to be in a range I can sing. So you can set the parameters of that. You can say, I only want to hear intervals between C4 and C5 because that's where my voice is most comfortable right now. So it's a really great resource. If you're interested in ear training, music theory, I would check that out for sure. All right. I would like to go back to some of those things, but just for the sake of time, I'm going to keep going for the moment. Avoiding common pitfalls when you are working on your voice. First common pitfall I would say is doing too much at once or worrying about too much at once. Your brain can probably focus on realistically one thing at a time. um, you could say maybe two, but I would say focus on one new thing per warm up or just one thing per warm up. What that thing is kind of is up to you. It depends on what you feel you're struggling with. So, for example, something like a lip trill. In the beginning, you're probably focused on just keeping that lip roll going and not losing it, you know. Um, Once you get the hang of that, then you can focus on your breath flow. You can start to be aware of how much air do I actually need for this exercise? Do I need to take in a really big breath, or can I make do with just a simple do I feel that my air is flowing consistently, smoothly? Do I feel like I'm just letting that air out? I'm not really forcefully pushing it out. Once that feels pretty comfortable, then maybe you work on relaxation. You say, I'm going to walk around my room while doing this exercise. I'm going to roll my shoulders back. Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. um, I'm going to make sure that I'm not tensing up for that high note. I'm going to stay as relaxed as possible, even if that means the note does not come out. I would rather be relaxed and have my voice cut out than only be able to make sound in a really tense, pressed way. Once you're comfortable with that, then maybe you start thinking about the depth of the sound. So I could do a lip trill that sounds really shallow and kind of nasal. That's not really training an ideal tone because if I'm used to making sound in that way, when I open up my mouth, listen to what happens. No, thank you. That's objectively not a beautiful singing sound. So as I'm doing that lip trill, I'm going to think about what vowel am I singing underneath that? And you can almost never go wrong with an vowel. So this time I'm going to sing the lip trill thinking the whole way. It feels relaxed. It sounds better. What happens when I open up my mouth? Much more beautiful singing tone than before, right? So I just named like 5 things you could think about just on a lip trill. with any given exercise, you could think about one of those things, whatever is most pressing, whatever it is that you're currently struggling with. Hopefully, you know the purpose of the exercises that you're doing. And if it's not clear, I would look for a video on YouTube, or if you do have a private teacher, that you would ask them, what should I be focused on during this exercise? What should I be thinking about? Or what is the goal? What is the purpose of this specific exercise? And if you're working with a teacher, they should be able to tell you. And if they can't tell you, if they say, "Oh, it's just an exercise. You don't need to think about anything." I mean, they might have a purpose for telling you that, but they should be able to say, "Oh, well, this we're using this vowel to help us get into our head voice." So, for example, a good exercise I just learned recently that I really like is starting on an ah vowel. That helps you get into a nice grounded chest voice, and then jumping an octave on a oo. And ooh, we know, is a narrow vowel. It helps us get into head voice. So, an example, we could go ooh. What I'm focused on there is starting with a really strong, robust being grounded in my chest voice, and then making that leap accurately, singing in tune, ooh, and finding that lighter, more head voicey sound. Once I can do that, then maybe I'm thinking of breath flow. Maybe I'm thinking of relaxation. I could think of many different things, but probably at the start, it's a good idea to know what's the goal and intention of this exercise, and shall I focus on that? That seems like that seems like a good plan. Um, Second common pitfall I see so often is not singing songs. It is wild to me. So many singers will come. I've even had more than one singer say, I'll do what you tell me to do. I'll do exercises for like 6 months and then I'll start singing songs. And I say, no, you're not doing exercises for 6 months. You're going to start singing today. What do you want to sing today? Um, you should be singing real songs from day one. That is what we're here to do. We're here to sing real songs. Now, a lot of singers just think, I'm not ready for songs. I need to get my technique under control first. Um, so I understand their thought process. However, I think it's very possible to find plenty of songs that are easy to sing. A song that's easy to sing has a pretty limited range, a narrow range. I actually have a list of songs that have about an octave range. An octave, if you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you just go to 1, 8, that's what we call an octave, 8 steps. So I'm going to see if I can find that article, and I'll drop it in the chat. But choose songs that feel easy for you at first, right? That just makes sense. So if you feel like you're not ready for Mariah Carey, eh, you might not be, and that's fine. But you don't need to spend 6 months doing lip trills before you get to singing. Um, Maybe in a first voice lesson, maybe your teacher wouldn't have you sing repertoire. Maybe, especially if it's a short lesson, like say in a 30-minute lesson, they're analyzing your voice, you're getting to know one another, you're learning an exercise routine. However, I make it a priority to have my students sing an actual song in the first lesson. It gives me a more complete sense of their voice and their musicality. That matters too, not just how do they sound on scales. So, anyways, your practice time could be about half and half, let's say 10 to 15 minutes of warm up or exercise, 10 to 15 minutes of working on a song. And if you want ideas for that, I think it was last week or maybe the week before that I took you through some steps to work on any song. So you can watch that live lesson. But uh, next common pitfall, and this is, I would say, heavier, darker, louder voice types are more guilty of this one, is avoiding your head voice. Remember, your head voice or falsetto function is that higher, lighter, woo. If you make a woo woo sound or a Mickey Mouse voice or maybe a cat meowing, though, or a cuckoo clock sound, those are all getting you into that higher, lighter head voice function. You can't neglect that. You just can't. Um, my argument is even if you don't see yourself using that function in the songs that you sing, it doesn't matter. What you're working on with head voice is flexibility, lightness, being able to sing quietly, using, thinner vocal fold instead of thick. Um, you know, yeah, you've got to work on your head voice. Don't neglect it. um, on the other side of the coin, this is a trap that I fell into big time, is being afraid of my chest voice for fear of vocal damage. So any voice teacher you go to, I mean, most voice teachers, they will at some point kind of scare you about vocal damage, unhealthy belting, and getting nodes. And they're going to say, if you're always singing really loud and really high, you're setting yourself up for, you know, you're putting yourself in danger of vocal injury. And while there is truth to that, um, singing in chest voice, remember your chest voice is just your speaking voice, is fine, is good. It's part of a healthy, balanced voice. So, what I think is helpful, I'm going to give you some pitches that can be your goal pitches to exercise your chest voice up to. So, for example, low voice types, tenors, baritones, basses. You can safely sing in a full speaking voice or chest voice sound all the way up to this D4 right here. So if you call across the room, you go, hey, or no, you are still safe. You're fine. Probably, unless you're like truly a really, really low bass, then maybe your upper limit is like the C4 instead. High voice types, altos, mezzos, sopranos, you can safely take a full, strong chest voice up to G4. And what ends up happening, so that would be, hey, hey, calling across the room. I can sing on that. I'm fine. I'm healthy. It's good. When you go above that and you're using that full, heavy chest voice or speaking voice sound without any sort of narrowing or thinning or starting to utilize some head voice function or resonance, that's when you start to set yourself up to maybe be in danger. Um, that's the importance of activating, working out your head voice and starting to develop a nice mix. So if I'm always yelling on A's, B flats, B's, C's, yeah, my voice is going to feel it, but it's not going to be some huge shocker. I'm going to feel fatigued. I'm going to feel pain. Um, I'm going to feel lack of control. That's a bad sign if the only way that you can sing a certain pitch is by yelling it. Um, that's not a great sign. Um, However, gosh, the beginning of this point was don't be afraid of your chest voice, and now I'm giving you reasons to be afraid of it. But remember, I prefaced it by saying those are the pitches that you can sing safely up to. You don't need to be afraid of your chest voice. You want to exercise your chest voice, and especially once you get a handle on your head voice and start to mix, then you can lean into the sound and still do that in a safe and healthy way. um so if you find that you're like a really overly cautious singer or a singer with a light voice, you might need some encouragement to embrace that chest voice again. And don't make the mistake that I made of being really afraid of chest voice and then just neglecting it for like a couple years. That's also, never mind. Never mind. Um, what I was going to say is that's pretty common in classical world, especially the training of classical female voices, is kind of this neglect of chest voice, but that's another story. Another common pitfall, getting bogged down in information. So you can listen to 1,000 podcasts, you can watch 1,000 lesson videos on YouTube. If you're never actually taking the time to sing and apply what you're learning, what are you doing? And I think, I'm guilty of this at times because, hey, I'm a teacher. I love getting new information. Um, but I need that reminder for myself. Don't just listen, don't just absorb. Find a way to apply this, apply what you're learning. Um, so if that's you, and I think the motivation for that, just speaking for myself, the motivation is like, if I have all the information, then I can avoid mistakes. And no, we can't. You can know something and then not be able to actually do that thing. Um, in the same way that, I could watch and read a lot about playing a certain game. I could tell you technically this is exactly how you set up the perfect free throw, and I could watch a million professionals making free throws, but have I actually gotten out onto the court and practiced my own free throws? If the answer is no, what's the point? Um okay, another common pitfall, lack of consistency. Um, I know this is tough. I know that life is busy. And as I'll tell my students, if they're like apologizing for not practicing, it's okay. If this is the thing that you need to cut out in order to, make yourself dinner and exercise and take care of your family, then that's fine. That is totally fine. What I would encourage you though to do is to keep music a part of your life, even if you're not working on something. Um, so maybe you didn't have time to do that 10-minute warm up or work on a song or your ear training, but could you be listening to songs that you love as you're cleaning the house? Yeah. Could you be listening to a podcast as you're driving to work that's on voice technique or singing? Yeah, totally. So lack of consistency, 15 to 30 focused minutes daily, or at least as close to daily as possible, is way, way better than 1 hour or 2 hours once a week. That's just like any habit that we're building. Two more common pitfalls: being too goal driven and losing the fun. So I encourage you to have some songs that are just for fun, that maybe you have a playlist that it's like, yeah, these are my easy songs. I can sing them in my sleep. Or these are songs that I'm not really even going to work on. It's just they make me feel really good to put them on and sing them. Don't lose the fun. Singing should be fun. If you find that singing is just stressing you out, take a break from whatever the goals are. Take a break. Well, what's the point if it's not fun? That's why we do any hobby, right? And last one, kind of related, prioritizing perfect technique over style. I actually got a comment on one of my TikTok videos. I'm on there, by the way. Um, if you look up CamilleVanNiekerk.music, you'll find me. Lots of little tips and mini lessons. Um, I got a comment on there that was like, "This sounds healthy and it sounds good." I was giving an exercise to help them sing a certain part of a song. I think maybe it was "Take Me to Church," and I was giving them an exercise, if they found that they were, cracking or going flat on the chorus. And the commenter said, "This sounds healthy, but it sounds boring." Everyone sounds the same when they're singing with healthy technique. And I was like, that's a really good point. This was not a finished performance. This was just an exercise to get you to sing this in a healthy way. However, that commenter had a really good point that when all you're worried about is technical proficiency and, technical perfection, you're going to lose the emotion. You're going to lose, a little bit of grit or rasp or breathiness. So I think one of the main goals of learning technique is so that you can understand the rules, how to keep a voice healthy, how to make sound efficiently, but that you're breaking those rules every now and then. So when singers ask about things like vocal fry, that sound, or singing really breathily, like Billie Eilish style, or maybe using a little bit of a shouty belt. Um, all of those things can be done in moderation. They can. The important thing is that you're in control of them. That if you are always singing breathily, or you can't stop yourself from singing with vocal fry, or the only way you can make sound is in that shout belt, that's when it might be a problem. But if you're in control, a really in control singer can incorporate these things when their voice feels good and healthy, and just flavor their performance with them. Um, So sometimes it's worth it to break the rules of perfect technique in order to serve the needs of the song and express yourself. Um, so I have a few articles that I'm going to put in the chat. The first one is on can you improve and how to improve. And I think that's important because maybe some of you are watching this and thinking, I would like to improve my voice, but deep down, I kind of think I can't. So I encourage you to check out that article. And then I also have another article to share, how to improve your singing voice, steps to follow for self study. And some of the notes were similar from what we talked about today, but there's, I think, a little bit more there, more steps. So I would love to go back and revisit maybe a few things that we talked about in the very beginning for 3 minutes, and then the last 15 minutes are entirely yours for Q&A. So any questions that you have, you can put them in the chat and I'm here to answer them until the end of the hour. Global Warming was asking, I heard your range changes every day. I wonder if you can hit a lower note than the last session. Um, Maybe. From the looks of it, it didn't seem to be. One of the previous sessions, I was sick, and so I was really having a lot of fun singing, like, low Cs, which I cannot sing on a typical day. So, no, I won't be singing lower than that, unfortunately. Um, so all those steps that I laid out at the beginning, working on pitch matching, identifying your range, posture and breathing, chest voice, head voice, and mix. All of those I know for a fact. I have live lessons that I've already done on those. So if you look up pitch matching, ear training, intonation, you will find a few live lessons on that topic. And so that goes a little bit more in depth on here are some exercises, here are steps to try. Um identifying your range. We've done more than one lesson on that. Breathing, I've done at least one lesson on, and then some shorter lessons as well. Chest voice, done lessons on that. Head voice, yup. Mix, done more than one. And I see some questions coming in, and I'll answer those very soon. The things I might not have lessons on would be, so we talked about dynamic variety, range extension, got that. Agility, got that. Power, got that. So we've done a lot of live lessons, and thankfully there's a ton of free content for you on here to dive a little bit deeper. Let's head into questions though. I like it. Ankit is asking, are false vocal cords retraction and open throat the same thing? That's a good question, and I would say, I'm gonna give you, like, half of an answer. So the false folds close over when you, let's say you're, like, lifting something heavy, your false vocal folds have closed over. So, do your false folds need to be open in order to sing with an open throat? I would say, yeah. But I would also add on to that most people, when they're talking about open throat singing, they mean more than just the false folds being out of the way. They mean generally openness within the back of your mouth and the top of your throat. So a good way to feel that would be inhaling as if you're kind of surprised. And I can feel it's like a little room opens up in the back. I can feel my soft palate lifting a little bit. I can feel space in the pharynx. Okay. And if I make sound, oh, oh, no more classical sounds. That's really appropriate. Ooh. Am I going to sing with that much openness for pop music? No, probably not. Um, I would say if you want to learn more about what classical teachers mean when they say open throat singing, I would look at singwise.com. Very good resource for more classical technique. Um, any tips to get good at singing quietly? Sure. So I would say first, make sure that you are exercising your head voice because remember that is our kind of thinner function. Use vowels that get you singing quieter. If you are singing on an open that's really loud. If I'm singing on an ooh or ee, my mouth is not as open. It's a narrow vowel, so it's naturally going to get me into a little bit more of that thinner head voicey function. So exercise throughout your range. Ooh. Challenge yourself to not get louder as you go higher. And you can even sing on something semi-occluded or NG. Challenge yourself to make very, very little sound, but still be making sound. You don't want the sound to be cutting out and just breath to come out. Um, but yeah, I would say semi-closed things like the M or NG, and then ooh and E as well. Those are your best bet for getting a nice, quieter, thinner sound. Cookie saying, I will just never understand that every time I sing in the shower, my voice is so powerful and beautiful, but when I sing in real life, I sound like a cat who's dying and laughing at the same time. Cookie, you're not alone. Bathroom acoustics are usually great. So you know what? Sing in the bathroom. Like do your warm up, do your singing in the bathroom where you're getting that nice feedback. Don't sing in your living room where there's maybe carpet and there's furniture that is just eating up that sound. Um, you it's better to be singing in what's called a live space instead of a dead space where you're not getting any of that feedback. So your bathroom, because there's a bunch of hard surfaces and they're reflecting back to you, that has a lot of natural reverb. So that's a good thing. Like think about um, think about the conditions in which professional singers sing. They sing in studios where they have headphones on. Those headphones, a lot of times, are giving a mix. And insert name here, I'm answering that question. Those headphones are getting usually a mix that has some reverb on it. All of the music you listen to has some reverb on it or some of that echo. Of course, it's usually added in post production. It's usually edited into the mix for editing purposes. But sometimes, if you're listening to a fully live album, they're recording in a place with good acoustics that have some echo. Um, in any choir situation I've ever been a part of, the acoustics of the room are very important. You choose your performance spaces based on the acoustics and will it serve the singers well? Sometimes you can't hear yourself very well, but the audience can hear you well. Um, so I, I would say for a confidence boost and for a picture of your voice that I say isn't unrealistic. You're just hearing it better. You're singing in a room with some reverb. I think that's a good thing. Remember that every professional singer is adding reverb. They're probably practicing in a nice studio space with the nice reverb. Use it. Come on, use it. Um, Carlo is asking, I'm struggling with scooping into words that start with a glottal stop. A specific example is from Weak by SWV, but it's caused me to act in such a crazy way. Okay. So I can see the k, k sound. While that's not necessarily a glottal stop would be but that k, k sound, you can hear or you can feel the back of your tongue and your soft palate meeting to make that k sound. Um, so I would say no problem if I sing caused and crazy straight on without the scoop. Carlo, I I'm not really sure how to answer this question, but because I think a little bit of a scoop is probably fine. Um, yeah. I I guess without hearing you, the best way to help you, if you can sing caused and crazy straight without the scoop, then I would just practice much more slowly, it's and then caused, and then over time start to minimize that gap between it's and caused. But keep in mind that a lot of singers do use scooping, sliding, falling as stylistic effect. So it's possible that you're doing that because you heard it on the original track and that's just the way that you learned it. Like, I'm with you that we should be able to sing things straight without scooping. We don't always want to be scooping. Um, However, scooping isn't inherently bad. Sorry, that's like a little bit of a non answer, but the best answer I can give you is if you can do it straight, just on the word, then practice separately, and then over time start to put them together. Joshua is saying, "Today I hit my highest mix belt at G4. Woohoo! So happy your advice helped a lot. I can now sing all my favorite male songs." Joshua, that is so exciting. That is wonderful. Proud of you. And that's huge. Being able to sing a G does open up a lot of pop and rock songs for you to sing. So that's awesome. Cookie is saying, "I was taking notes the whole lesson. I will search on YouTube for more resources." Awesome. Debbie was saying, "Actually new at singing, trying to get my voice right. Help me with resources that will help a beginner like me." So Debbie, I do have a nice list of resources on my website, and I'm going to find that for you. Here you go. That's for Debbie and anyone else interested. Ankit asked if I lower my soft palate, wouldn't it sound nasal? Yeah, probably. So the soft palate or the velum in the back of your mouth, it raises when you yawn. It just naturally does that. Oh, so if you lower your soft palate, if you lower it all the way, then it's a completely nasal sound. You're making an NG sound. So yes, if you lower your soft palate, usually you're going to get a nasal tone. Carl, how to best memorize a song? There is a video on the channel. Um, it's a it's a quick one, and I think I also have an article. So let me grab the article. I know some of us, myself. Sorry, my laptop's going to shake a lot as I'm looking for this. Um, I prefer to have something in text form, not just video. So let me find that. What am I looking for? Memorization. Okay, one second. There we are. Okay, so for Carl, if you don't want to watch the video, there's the blog article. Sheila's asking, "I wanted to take an additional one-on-one with you. I can afford 1 hour lesson or two 30 minutes, which would be better." Um, Sheila, I would say two 30 minutes. I think two 30 minutes is better personally. An hour can be a little bit long, and I know it makes sense. You're like, yeah, I have more time, but the nice thing with two 30 minutes is you can have time between those lessons to work on something. Um, so if you would like, here I will also include my lessons page for you, Sheila. There you go. And I also have a 45-minute option. Um, Chantel was saying, today while doing warm-ups, I was very breathy and I was breaking a lot. What can I do to overcome this? Always go to something semi-closed. So if you are breathy and just can't find that connection, anytime you partially occlude or partially close the vocal tract, that just means either your lips or, your soft palate and tongue, somewhere there is closure. So a hum, an NG, it's almost impossible to be, I guess you can, but it's a lot of work to be breathy on the NG. You can also sing through a straw. That's excellent to get those chords lined up nicely. And that'll also help you with the cracking issue too. Bing was saying, ooh, can I ask what's the difference between highest mix belt and head dominant mix? So Bing, I would say your highest mix belt could be a head dominant mix. It just depends on how you classify what belting is. So some people will hear a sound if it's head mix and they'll say, well, if there's really that little chest voice quality, I wouldn't classify it as a belt. But that's subjective. That is very subjective. I would say for low voice types, tenors, baritones, basses, the highest that you're normally going to hear someone truly belt would be like a C5. And that's a mixed belt, of course. I would say above that, it's gonna be more head dominant. At least I can't think of many examples where it's higher than that and isn't head dominant. Joshua is asking, is it possible for a male to belt an F5? So that's kind of the same thing we're talking about here. An F5, there are females who cannot belt an F5. So I would say when you're singing that high, it is going to be extremely head dominant, especially for a male singer. So it'll be a little bit more of what we might call skrelting, the wow, wow, like that kind of quality, not a true head voice sound. Sorry, that was so ugly. I just want to give a little bit of demonstration. But you know what I'm talking about? Like the hair metal bands that might sing that high. It is not a chest voicey sound in most cases. Bum, 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 bum. Ankit, my last question is, how can I make curbing vowels sound brighter and vice versa for different styles of singing? Ankit, I would start with a little primer on vowels, and I do have a live lesson on vowels as well. So I would start there. Let's see. Essentially, understanding what are my dark sounding vowels? Ooh, oh, what are my bright sounding vowels? Yeah. So if I have a dark vowel, like how can I make that brighter sounding? I can move it slightly toward one of those brighter vowels. What that looks like is just me letting my mouth widen slightly. But I think to me, the awareness of which vowel can I go toward is how you'd start. Here's a beginner's guide to vowel modification. Carl, what does a private lesson include? That's one-on-one time. So typically, if it's a very first lesson, I would do a vocal assessment with you. So I'd figure out, okay, where's our comfortable range? What is the most pressing need for us today? Is it a lack of chest voice connection, lack of head voice? What's happening in the middle? That's really where I focus in the first lesson, because that's the most important thing is getting your voice put together so that you can sing low to high without things getting crazy. And then, like I said before, we work on a song. We work on a song of your choosing, ideally a song that you are having a little bit of trouble with. That's the most beneficial use of time. If you bring a song that's really easy for you and sounds good, what am I going to help you with? You know, I could help you maybe fine tune, but that's not the best use of time. Likewise, bringing a song that is so outside of your comfortable range that it's going to take a lot of time and range extension to get there, that's also not the best idea. So a step or two above your comfort zone is the best use of our time. Um, all right, my friends. Well, this was great. Thank you for being here. I will see you next time. Um, Probably not same day and time, but uh, uh, it'll be posted relatively soon. So I hope to see you then. Have a good weekend. Bye.